When life gets unpredictable, preparation matters. In medicine, it's all about staying alert, ready for whatever comes through the door. On the road, it's no different. That's why Volvo designs vehicles to help anticipate risk, reduce harm, and protect lives. The Volvo XC90's advanced safety systems inspire confident decisions wherever the road takes you. The Volvo XC90, for life. Proud sponsor of the Pit Podcast. Learn more at volvocars.ca/safety.
In Transit today takes a look at the future of auto manufacturing and auto parts manufacturing in this country. You know, the 2023 North American Leaders Summit just wrapped up. The three amigos met in Mexico City to discuss trade and more. One of the big topics up for debate was auto manufacturing. And we learned at the summit of a big win for auto manufacturing, auto parts manufacturing in this country. Canada and Mexico and auto companies were declared the winners in arguably the most important trade dispute under the new NAFTA deal. The U.S. on the losing side in a case about calculating the origin of auto parts. Now, at those meetings in Mexico City, at the table in Mexico City, alongside the Prime Minister, was our next guest. Flavio Volpe is president at the Automotive Parts Manufacturers Association here in Canada. Flavio, welcome back to the program.
For having me back on.
First things first, let's talk about the NAFTA win, the win under the NAFTA deal here. Why was it so important? Why was that win so big for this country?
Two reasons. On the actual content, the context, Canada and Mexico were arguing for the terms on how we make cars and where we source parts from that we had negotiated in 3 years with the Trump administration. We all agreed. We signed and ratified agreements, and the industry, which works in 10 and 20-year increments, has already started doing their supply dynamics that way. The new American administration said, we interpreted it differently, and it was going to throw into disarray all of the things that we threw into disarray to get to where we were right now. It risked whether automakers were actually going to try to play by the rules and say, forget it, we'll just pay the tariff and source our parts from anywhere we wanted. The other reason that is really important is that, like you said off the top, this is Canada and Mexico going to a panel in the new NAFTA and challenging the U.S. and winning. I think that says that the new agreement has a legitimate dispute resolution panel. I don't think any of your listeners, I don't think anybody I represent thought that the table would be so fair, and it is. And I think that bodes well for the the next 15 years of this agreement.
You were at the Leaders Summit. You were at the table there. Tell me about those meetings that happened and what those meetings mean for the future of Canada's auto parts and auto manufacturing.
I think all three countries, and especially a lot of due credit to the Americans here, is that they understand that in automotive, as we electrify, as we move to new technologies, that China is their real competitor. They've moved past the Japanese and the Germans and everybody else. But they can't compete with China without Canada and Mexico on board. And so we've got a lot of the critical minerals that we needed to go into those batteries in Quebec especially, but also Northern Ontario. And we've got access to good trained labor pools in Mexico, and that between the manufacturing that's in all those three countries and the raw materials and technology we have, we can do things together and be number one. And that was really the theme of the discussions. What does that mean? On the critical mineral side, how do we set up agreements that give all three countries access to preferred access to what Canada has? And on technology and on this great amount of capital that the U.S. Treasury is spending in this space, how do Canada and Mexico participate? I think there was some very good principles set there, but the fact that we were all talking about it with the leaders present, led by the leaders, means we're in a new world.
We're with Flavio Volpe, he's president of the Automotive Parts Manufacturers Association, talking about the future of Canada's auto manufacturers and auto parts manufacturers. Now, Flavio, what you just said there about China, I think everyone needs to, and I want to just reiterate what you just said here, right? When we look, right now, the auto industry, it's sea change, right? The transition to electric vehicles. Are you saying if North America, if our auto manufacturers don't get their act in order here, the future won't be controlled by Japanese or German auto manufacturers. It's China that's the big concern as a competitor long term?
Chinese manufacturers make about 50% more vehicles a year than North American manufacturing together, and their local market is about 60% larger and growing. And so, you can imagine that the pull of a 35 million a year purchase market, Canada's is 2 million a year, and the push of a market that makes 30 million cars a year. In Canada we make 2 million cars a year, means that as car companies are looking for the best markets to launch new vehicles, to invest in new tech, to source lithium in batteries, and not have to worry about whether they burn coal to do that or strip mine in a way in which you couldn't do it in Canada. It's all there. Mm-hmm. And so the only way to beat them, and look, for Canada's perspective, there's only one path, the U.S., but also for the U.S., they need what Canada has, and they can hold back the Chinese technological rush and the heft of their market if they include, all 450 million people on this continent.
I have to ask you this, and I have to ask you if Canada at all is playing some catch-up here, right? So I bought an electric vehicle. I'm in Quebec, and when I bought my electric vehicle, I got $13,000 in rebates, right?
Yep.
It's not lost on me that in Canada's biggest market, Ontario, and southern Ontario, the governments there got rid of subsidies for electric cars, have done very little on charging networks, right? Here in Quebec, It's unbelievable, our public charging networks, right? And now it feels like, we finally figured it out that electric cars are the future, and now we got to play catch up. And I point to decisions made by the Ontario government, and I say, boy, maybe these were bad decisions made over the last decade. Are we playing catch up because of bad decisions by Canadian politicians at all?
It's a much more complex issue than that, but I'll say this. When we had a new government elected here in Ontario, we said, I represent manufacturers. I said, don't spend money on incentives for purchases of vehicles made in California with batteries from China. Spend 2-3 times that amount on making sure that those vehicles are manufactured here. And then, of course, we have to catch up. Like you're talking about, we have to get into the incentive game. But it doesn't matter if you're in the incentive game if they stop making the cars here. So we've got those car commitments. In Quebec and BC, of course, we've got a lot of take-up because, there's a lot of purchase incentives. But I'll say to you that 90 to 95% of the batteries in those cars, and those are $25,000 batteries, are mined in China and not in Quebec. There's a company called Sayona Mining in Quebec. It's going to deliver lithium to car makers, to the process for car makers at the end of the first quarter of this year. It's the only one in North America that's going to produce that until end of 2025, 2026. We just built and showcased at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, Project Arrow, an all-Canadian running prototype of an electric vehicle. In it, we had a lot of Quebec technology. Volpe Explorer batteries out of Pointe Claire. LeddarTech is the LiDAR and the self-drive supplier out of Quebec City. TM4 from Boucherville did the motors, and Fasco from Longueuil did the wheels. The only way for Quebec to get a full piece of the EV future is to be in the manufacturing end of it. Mm-hmm. And I hope that the Quebec government as well starts to take a look at how do you support everybody from Sayona down to Fasco so that we get a big piece of it. So we're not just buying other people's cars and batteries, but we're building all those major components and those batteries and getting lithium in Quebec, because that's how Quebec especially, but Canada as a whole, becomes an electric vehicle superpower. We are the world's number 2 source, according to Bloomberg, of those critical minerals required for batteries, and most of it is in northern Quebec.
Yeah. And we were looking at Project Arrow, of course, as you mentioned, unveiled at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. Speaking with Patrina Gentile, automotive journalist, you know her very well.
Yeah, I love her.
She's a great contributor on this program. We're talking about Project Arrow and how important it is. So what you're saying here is that Canada, as it stands, has all of the winning components, has all of the components necessary to become a leader in EV manufacturing, but we just need to do a little bit more heavy lifting to ensure that future.
Yeah, Yeah, we need to. If we're going to use our market to, like the Feds 2 weeks ago said, we need to go to 20% EV by 2026 and 100% by 2035. And they expected me to be on board, and I said, "You guys are crazy. We're not going to do it. We've got 40% of people live in condos and apartments. How do you do that?" I said, "But I think it's very important to really push those targets, but do it in a way in which we say, look, we chase Toyota, Honda, Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis to say, if you're going to make cars in Canada, you're going to make them electric. And if you're going to do those batteries, we're going to partner with you on mining and cell manufacture in Quebec and battery packing in Quebec, and so that all of that supply chain comes down into the cars in Ontario and goes, and then tie those purchase incentives. Say, hey, you know what? We want you all to electrify, and that money comes back into jobs and prosperity in province and in country. We can do it. Sometimes we put the cart ahead of the horse.
I know you're a busy guy. I want to thank you for taking the time for In Transit this morning. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on. Loved it.
Flavio Volpe is president at the Automotive Parts Manufacturers Association right here in Canada.